And we're also going to support student assessment. So whether or not the school committee chooses to do PARCC, MCAS is being sunset shortly. And what we understand is that even if the state does not sign on to PARCC in the long run, the MCAS that they will be creating will be PARCC-like, but it also will be online. So therefore, we're going to have the capacity to be able to do that. There's some indication that they're going to free up E-rate, which is a reimbursement for the purchase of technology infrastructure, to help school districts do that. So we may be able to maximize the $500 if, in fact, that happens. But we're still waiting to see that.
Yes, Dr. Hiersche, you mentioned the state's change from MCAS to PARCC. I started hearing, I guess, a little bit about it, but I'm not all that educated on it. What are the implications of that for Beverly, and are there any financial impacts, I guess, in the budget related to that?
Essentially, the change that you might see is we might change our technology plan from the standpoint of focusing some infrastructure pieces that we might have waited a year for. But as we look at the infrastructure that's necessary to deliver PARCC, it's stuff we would do for the classroom anyway, for the day-to-day use in the classroom for kids and teachers. So there's not any major added expense from the standpoint of PARCC. The state has heard that communities, actually we're in better shape than most, are struggling with being able to have enough technology and access in order to deliver PARCC. But that's one of the things they're looking for, is how can they incentivize that? Can they create an E-rate reimbursement that will help communities get to that? So we may, in fact, find that the E-rate might go up, in which case we actually would be able to maximize the money that we've already got allocated here. The change, the state right now is trying to make a determination after another year of piloting whether to go with PARCC or go with MCAS. PARCC is a 21st century test. MCAS, which is why it's going to be sunset shortly, is not. It's a 20th century test. And we've been given it a long time. The kids are relatively test immune to MCAS at this point. So no matter what happens in the future, it's very clear that the state's going to commit to an online product that will be probably K through 11. And in Beverly, we're pretty well set up to be able to do that. We didn't have any glitches with the testing that we did this year from a technology standpoint. Most of the feedback that we heard from kids is while they think it's a little bit harder, it was more interesting to some of the kids than MCAS had grown to be. So I wouldn't say for us it's as big a hit as it is for some communities.
And that decision will be made at the state level, whether it goes on?
Yeah, we have to make a decision. The school committee has to make a decision by the end of June as to whether we're going to do PARCC next year or MCAS next year. We then actually can wait until October and we can change our mind if we want, but we do need to indicate beforehand by the end of June as to whether we want to do PARCC, and then next year they will make a decision as to whether PARCC will become the statewide test. If it does, MCAS will be gone except for sophomores, and they will continue the sophomore because it's a high stakes test for kids for graduation for a couple more years.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Scott?
Yes, Dr. Hiersche. I have a couple of questions sort of all around the same basic idea. So when you refer to 20th century test, 21st century test, is that because PARCC is really digital, online, as opposed to?
No, it has much more to do with the content.
Yeah, explain to me what you mean when you say that.
Much more emphasis on open-ended questions, much more emphasis on kids being able, like in the science portion that they haven't got completed yet, much more around doing some experiments, and then as a result of the experiments they're doing, being able to then answer questions in depth. It's It's actually, if you want to take a look at some of the test questions, they're actually online through the DESE. It's really interesting to take a look at the depth of question that people are asked, kids are being asked, particularly in mathematics. My background's math. I love the math questions in PARCC because they really make the kids think, and they make the kids apply what they know as opposed to just regurgitate what they know. So if it's a solid geometry question, as an example, they're not so much interested in the proper use of the formula. They're much more interested in the student being able to explain why the formula would work and what the actual result is that could be expected from that.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.